Welcome to the Best Business Podcast, the podcast for established marketers, entrepreneurs, and CEOs, the ones who want to join me in my mission to create 200 new multimillionaires who solve world problems with entrepreneurship. If that's you, then this podcast was created to give you access to the tools, training, strategies, and tactics you need to achieve multiple seven-figure profits as soon as possible. This world needs the best business you can build, so please get ready, open your mind, believe you can do this, and let's build a better world together for future generations. Hello everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us. I'm Daryl Urbanski as always. Today we have a very special guest, and I know they say that often, and it's because everyone I bring on board, they really are heavy hitters, they really are people who have accomplished great things, and they really are people who have a lot of value to give us. And today I'm very, very honored by our guest. Here we're joined by Jermaine Griggs. He's the CEO and founder of He&rsquo, a company that's helped tens of thousands of people learn how to play music by ear without having to read sheet music. He also has a couple of other endeavors, but just some of his accolades. He's two-time Marketer of the Year, once with InfusionSoft, another time with Marketing Sherpa. He's recognized as a man of character by the Boy Scouts of America. He's a self-made man with a multiple seven-figure business. In my honest and sincere opinion, he's in the top 3% of marketers in the world, and I say that having spent personally almost $100,000 on coaching and consulting and books and courses and seminars and conferences. Jermaine really knows his stuff. He's a marketing automation guru, a direct response guru, a branding guru. He's a great father, a great husband, has 3 beautiful children. And when Jermaine talks, everybody listens, and I really hope that you pay attention, you take some notes. I'm going to try and get as much out of his head as I can on this call today, but I know you're going to have a great time because he's got a phenomenal personality. Jermaine, thank you for joining us.
Hey, Daryl, I am thrilled to be here, and I do a lot of these interviews, but not a lot of them with people I consider good friends of mine, so this is just an honor for me.
Yeah, it's feelings mutual, bud. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, we're good friends, and I know your story pretty well, but for the people that are listening in here, maybe could we talk a little bit about how you got started? Because it's just such an awesome story, man. Yeah.
I appreciate that, but yeah, I consider myself like an old young man at this. You mentioned my hear and play business. I mean, that officially got started 15 years ago, but the story really starts at least 7 years before that. So I'm one of those like childhood entrepreneurs, and every once in a while you hear a story, and you know the guy got started at 7, 8 years old. Well, I feel like I qualify for that story because for me it actually started when Grandma, she won this piano off The Price is Right, and some people may have heard it if you follow me or see me in the InfusionSoft community. But she won this piano in the 70s, even before I was born. And this piano is like an emblem in our family to this day. And I would just grow up admiring her play it and just picture like an old lady playing like she had this church gospel style that meets Ray Charles's blues. And she would like tap her right foot. And then I would go beat on the pots and pans. I'd take out like pots, boiling pots, and put them on the couch and make drumsticks out of whatever I could find, tree branches. And there we were, like a little duet, Grandma and her grandson. And so one day I actually hopped on that piano and found out that I, too, had a knack for playing it, and started with Disney songs and then started with church songs because I was just born and raised in the church, so played a lot of church songs. And then a couple years after that, created a kids group, and we would travel around the local community singing church songs and then playing for church. And then that escalated into parents wanting to have their kids learn under me. So I'm a teenager with like a little, mini practice, if you will, a piano studio, traveling to people's homes. And then someone said, you ought to put this on the internet. And back then, I mean, we're talking AOL 2.0, 2.5, and so modem connection, 14.4K.
A lot of people don't even know what that is. It was funny. I know. That story, but it was funny the other day. Where was it? No, you weren't there. No, you were there. We showed your kids cassette tapes, and we were like, what are these? And they had no idea. So anyway, before the internet we have now, there was dial-up, and it was slow, it was clunky, black and white computers. Anyway, sorry, keep going. I just thought that was...
No, that's right. That was the landscape in which, I launched Hear and Play August 6th, the year 2000, and it was with the vision and dream to introduce to people my style of playing and to really be a resource to all the players out there that didn't go the traditional routes, that didn't learn sheet music. Maybe Beethoven and Bach, it didn't resonate with them because, playing in the church or playing in bands, playing in situations where you're free to just or need to play on your own and play what you feel, well, yeah, create. There's not really a lot of resources out there for that. And even to this day, you can get into debates with people saying you should read sheet music versus playing by ear. So I wanted to cater to the play by ear. Thus the name Hear and Play. And that was the dream. That's how we got started. But it wasn't easy in the beginning. I know you're probably going to ask me about that, but that was it. I started, 20 some odd years ago, and here I am 15 years after that at 31 doing the same thing with a passion for teaching the world how to play not just piano now, but guitar, drums, organ, singing, and really going to change the way people learn with our next invention. So just looking forward to that. But I know you're going to ask me about some of the challenges because I don't want to paint the picture that it's always been easy, right? But like Grandma said, not where I want to be, but I'm so thankful I'm not what I used to be.
Yeah, no, that's true. And we've all had a lot of challenges, and I know some of the ones that you've gone through. What were some of the big ones? Because, back in the day, before you went online, is that where you were getting most of your order sales from? Or how, because you were in university at the time, and I think in the beginning you said, you were selling maybe 20 of your workbooks a month or something, and that was online, but were you just just selling them at the church, or how else were you trying to make sales in the early days?
Well, in the very early days, the sales came from my actual students. I didn't know what the word leverage meant back then, but it is not surprising that today I'm like the automation guy and the leverage guy, because back then I said, I don't want to teach the same stuff every week to these knucklehead kids. I didn't call them knucklehead kids, but you get the point. I didn't want to show up every week. My personality wasn't, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a fast starter, I don't stay focused like that, so to do the same thing, I quickly noticed I need to put this in a workbook. So that's how I actually got the concept for my first product. I already had it in the local community, and I just kind of, reshaped it to sell it online. And so we put that online August 6, 2000. I had my first order by October. Only a couple months went by, I had my first order. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And then a month after that, I'm up to about 5 orders a month. So, I sold them for like $50, $60. You're talking just a few $100s. And I'm still in high school, not even university.
Right.
And then I'd go to university, and we get up to about 10 orders a month. And my girlfriend, who's my wife now, she'd help me go buying the books. And we're on-demand shipments. The order came in, we go bound them, go to Mickey D's, have some lunch, and then I drop her off at home.
That's right. Hey, you're probably a king back in that day. You got a business, you're in high school. What I love about your story, though, is that you had something that you verified offline, that you had students, it might have been grunt work, I guess, in the beginning, but you're like, it was what I was already teaching, but I needed a way to keep yourself consistent, and you put it in the manual, and then you went and put it online. I just liked how grassroots and organic that was in the early days and how you started.
Right, and it really speaks about just getting things in motion. Success is attracted to activity. It's not that you got to know all the answers. I think people get hung up on their analysis paralysis, and they do it in the name of, I want to do it right. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. But oftentimes, waiting costs you. That waiting is an expense, is a what do you call it? A replacement cost or an opportunity cost. By waiting in the name of research and planning versus me, I was willing, and maybe my age has something to do with it, my naivety, but I was willing to just get out there and do it, even the wrong way, because you can always correct something in motion, but you can't do anything that doesn't exist yet. So just do it. Like Nike says, just do it. And I did at 17 years old. I did it. I had 5 sales and then 10 sales. But again, I had bigger sights. You're talking about a kid who had been doing business for at least, 7 years, selling stuff, and I sold Avon. I didn't even talk about that with you. I was that kind of kid. So that 5, 10 orders, I saw more than that, Daryl. So that was my struggle. I didn't have any money. I only had $70. That's what started Here and Play with $70. But beyond that, I didn't have money to put in marketing, or not that there was even that many pay-per-click engines to work with. I think we had GoTo.com. This was even before AdWords. That gives you a perspective. It was GoTo.com. It was like the pay-per-click of choice.
Right.
But I didn't even have the money. It didn't even matter because I didn't have the money. So I think one of the biggest problems is that time versus money pendulum. And, oftentimes when you don't have the money, you have the time. And so you have to seek out ways and very creative guerrilla strategies to do things. And once you get that first set of money, it's what you do with that first set of money that comes in. Rather than getting excited and spending it, that money has to be reinvested back to get you to that paid side as quick as possible, because the free side is, there's no leverage there. It takes time, it takes resources, energy. You oftentimes burn out trying to do things on the free side, where on the pay side, you get that immediate scalability. So really the challenge is getting to that paid side right away, and your economics can do that for you. And so that's kind of where I was at 17, and it didn't happen for me until 18 months after that.
Got it. And, and I really like what you said there is so brilliant, because, this was pre-Google, but advertising is advertising. And I really think this is an important point, because everyone's all crazy about online marketing. And online, all it is just a very efficient medium. It's actually, from my understanding and from the projects I have been involved in, it hasn't performed nearly as well on a % ROI basis as other mediums when you get them to work. But it's so efficient that it's the most efficient, but it's the least effective. And efficient in that you can target people, you can target them at certain states of mind. Send someone a letter, you don't know how they're feeling when they get it, right? You don't know that stuff, but you can put a site, you can put your ad up on a site with people that are smiling. You're going to be happiness.com, and so people that are coming there, if they're either coming there to feel a certain way. So there's so much, so efficient but so ineffective. But you're right, paid media is the fastest way to grow and scale a business. And it's funny, because I literally just before this interview was just chatting with a potential client he's in Spain right now, and he's hitting the same thing. He's doing all this free stuff and this JV stuff and this strategic alliance stuff, and he's just sitting on the fence because he's just like, he's like, I'm not sure if I want to try to make paid traffic work. And the problem with that is, if you're an organic person, if you have like a location in a mall, and then you're dependent on the foot traffic that comes through there, who's driving the foot traffic? If you're not controlling that, then you've got very little control over your business and the results you're going to get. If you're in the search engine, the Google search engine, and you're ranked second or first, and there's only 10,000 searches a month, then you're limited by that. And the same thing if you have JV partners or strategic alliances, how often can they promote you without exhausting and annoying their people? But if you can get paid media to work, now you can start looking for pockets of people like in the universe, like all over the country. You can reach out, and now you can access the churn. And the churn, by that I mean all the new people coming into the market, and because people constantly churn, they come in and out of the market, and it's really hard to access those people if you can't pay to be in front of them and be like, again, in these pockets of where they are. And anyways, just to speak to what you said, because I think it's so important what you said, and so many people miss that. And you are like a guru at that. What was your EPC for the campaign for your launch? You had like a 232 EPC. When was this? This was like
my latest automation clinic launch, it was like 227, and it was a small list compared to my Here and Play, just a couple thousand people. But the money that we generated without any JVs, without any partners, without anybody mailing, no solo broadcast, just a couple thousand people on a list, a targeted list of InfusionSoft users in the automation community. And when you did the math on revenue to people engaged in that campaign, or per click, $227.
Which is awesome.
And compared to what, $5 or $6 EPCs, right?
Yeah.
And Here and Play is not too far away. The numbers work obviously different there, but relative to, cost per click and cost per lead, that's profitable. And back to what you said, I totally agree. I'd rather take the control and the autonomy, like that foot traffic scenario, having to rely on the mall's marketing or the amount of people coming in versus having the power and the freedom to generate, customers, clients, business at will. And that's the thing that gives me freedom. I know know not every entrepreneur feels the way I feel, and like yourself, going to bed at night, because I go to bed with peace of mind. I never have to think, what if my customers don't come tomorrow for Hear and Play? What if I'm just living a dream? Where do all these customers come from? There are people that go to bed and have no idea where their customers come from. You know, maybe they've got some buzz, maybe something went viral on social media, maybe they got on Oprah, maybe they've got some publicity, and they do. They tip that tipping point, but they really don't know where their customers come from. They're living a dream, but it still bothers them at night because they don't have that control. And at any given day, there's that feeling that, what if all this goes away? But see, I never feel that way. If Hear and Play disappears, if Automation Clinic disappears, I feel I have a talent and a skill to go create. And that's the difference between proactivity and reactivity. I'm proactive about it. So I think moving to that paid, and even bigger than that, just being able to convert, just studying conversion and sales and persuasion, that's probably the best thing that a budding entrepreneur can do, is just learn how to sell and how to convey and communicate in a way that makes people desire and want your product and move them to action. And when you develop that skill, you can almost fill in the blank of what you're offering and what solution you're solving. So that was something I didn't know in the beginning, though, Daryl, because when I first put up my website, what is the normal thing to do? Well, you know, you get these catalogs in the mail, and you're like, okay, I'm going to put a photo. So I took a photo of my books, and then I did 4 sentences, like 300-page workbook and CD teaches you how to play the piano, you know, act now, and then I crossed out the retail price, and I put the sale price, and then there was a PayPal button, which was X.com back then. Some people don't know that. And then they click to buy. And even that, doing it that way with 4 sentences in a book, thinking, you know, the catalog model, even that still produced 5 to 10 sales a month. But my tipping point was when the advice that I'm giving out right now, I took that advice, I stumbled onto direct response marketing, and that was all she wrote.
Yep. That's awesome. Yeah, and you made, just with some enhances and changes, you started just doubling and tripling your sales and growing and growing. But what were some of the early challenges you had? I mean, you've been through all the stages of a business, you know, through to maturity. Kind of what were the biggest upsets for you, the biggest challenges? Because exactly like we said, there's always them. Nobody, if you ever see someone that it looks too easy, there's something wrong with the picture. You know, it might be that easy for them now, but you know what I mean? Like, there's I just want to say that for people, because I hear that a lot. People are like they try to put me on a pedestal, and I'm like, don't put me on a pedestal. I'm just active. Like, that's it. Like, I fail all day, every day. And I know I don't know if you do that much anymore with your campaigns, but I know in the beginning you probably had campaigns that you do, and you're like, well, you know, there's no sales from that, but whatever. And it's just getting back up to bat, and it's day by day stacking those bricks. It's how you build a wall. Sorry, back to you, but what were some of the big challenges that you had with Hear and Play, like from the early days kind of on?
Right. Well, back to that free versus paid, you know, pendulum. I'm only swinging on one side of that, you know, as a teenager, so I don't have any money. And so it's just the frustration and the speed at which, you know, the sales and the revenues come, and it can be discouraging. I think, you know, age had a lot to do with it, being in a position where, you know, I could wait, you know, we're talking 16 months here, and, you know, somebody well off into maybe a career or a day job or 9 to 5, they're not willing, you know, they may not be willing to wait, you know, 16 months. Most people give up. They give up. They hear these gurus talk about making money overnight, and when they don't make it overnight, they surrender. They give up. They fall back. They go back to status quo. So, you know, whether you're young, whether you're old, it doesn't matter. I think the thing is the same. You got to be committed. You have to try things. You have to be willing to fail. So for me in the early days, you know, I was having to do a lot of message board interaction, and I would have to post on forums. I started news groups. I started Yahoo groups. I did a lot of link directory adding of my website. They had free-for-all link pages back then, which don't exist today. Bulletin boards, chat rooms. I mean, it was all that AOL 2.0 stuff that existed for us. I started a list at Yahoo Groups. I was a moderator. That was my early version of Aweber and InfusionSoft, because it would house my list, and as moderator, I could mail that list. But the 3 to 5 sales, that was the frustrating part. And you would say, wow, that's great. You're only 17, 18, but still, people working a day job making more than that. Part-time job making more than that. So for me, I think the solution to that came when I asked a better question. I think Tony Robbins says, you want a better answer, ask a better question. And so I started actually researching how to grow sales. I didn't know what I would stumble onto soon, but how to grow your sales, how to increase your website sales, how to increase your website awareness, things like that. And I stumbled across a man named Corey Rudel, and he's not with us anymore. He died in a car accident in '05, but he was one of my first mentors online. I bought his course for $200 that I didn't have. I don't know where I scraped that up, but it was somewhere, maybe on my first credit card I got in college or something. But I scraped that up. It was like January 2002. And it was called The Insider Secrets to Marketing Your Business on the Internet. And I bought that thing, and it was introducing me to a world that I had only seen in a limited fashion before. Like, he was saying, okay, if you've got a catalog site, which I had, he's like, switch that thing to a 26-page sales page. Like, he was like, you got to have this headline at the top, and it's usually going to be bigger, and you may even want to make it red. And I was like, red? And then it started with discover how to, or 7 ways to, or 7 mistakes, and he was giving me all these headlines. I was like, oh, this is a lot different than my book and picture and 4 sentences. And then he was like, you have to start by saying, dear, musician or whatever, and then you have to like relate to them, and then you have to talk about why they're frustrated. And I was like, I do, and then I have to write this long letter. So I wrote it. I followed this formula. I put credentials where the credentials said. Well, I didn't have any credentials, so I just listed all the accolades I got in high school because I was like school president. It was so cute. I was like, he's been recognized by the school board. I didn't tell him why, but I said I didn't say he was on the honor roll. I just said he was recognized. I mean, everywhere he gave the formula, I found out how to apply it to me. I didn't do what most people do and say, "Oh, why that doesn't apply to me because I'm selling real estate." No, I found out how it applied to me, and within a week, I had a 26-page sales letter. I gave it to my college roommate. He said, dude, no one's ever going to read that. Gave it to my suite mates. He said, dude, what are you doing? Your site is making sales. Aren't you happy? And I ignored all that, and I remember by March 2nd, I was ready to go live, and I had a new product and all that stuff. And that day, I released it, and I released that new sales page, and I woke up that next day, we would go on to create $1,100 in sales in one day, and this was something I didn't do in 2 months.
Yeah, that's life-changing. That's a life-changing moment. And I remember the first time I had 6 figures in my bank account. I think I cried. I remember messaging you. I was like, sorry, but that's life-changing for you. So then after that, obviously it's go time, right? So then how do you manage your growth?
Right. So finally, that day was my turning point from the free side of the pendulum, which is the slow way to grow, to now I have, $8,000 which I never had more than like a few $100s in the bank. So now I have like 8,000, and then it grows to 10,000. And in that day, it's 18, 19 years old. I've got more money than I can deal with. Like, to me, that's a lot of money coming from where I grew up, So now I immediately recognize, I think it was chapter 7 or something, he starts talking about the leverage of paid media, and he starts talking about pay-per-clicks. And again, I don't even think Google AdWords came out until maybe that year it came out, or maybe the year before, but we're talking infancy stages of all of this. So I go to GoTo.com, which became Overture, which became Yahoo Search Marketing, which now is like Ad Center. So that's the evolution of that. And I start bidding on words, 10 cents, per click. And it would even show you what your advertisers are bidding back then. It was much more easier than now. Like, you could see 9 cents. Okay, I'm going to come in at 10. Right. And now the traffic starts coming in consistently, like 500 visitors a day. And we're getting like 5, 7 sales, sometimes 10 sales a day. So, we're at like $300, $400 a day now, a consistent, 6-figure annually. And that's where everything I learned now. This was like I don't know what phase you could call it, but that's where we started our affiliate program after that, and we started getting those kinds of partners. And then we started our organic SEO. We hired an SEO company. And so the big deal there is when you make your transition, you've got to be smart with how you use that money, and you have to reinvest that money in your early stages. It's not the time to party. And we went like on a Catalina trip and all that stuff, but when I came back to my senses, I was like, I need to put this money back into the business, and that's what I did. And we were able to grow it, from the $200,000 to the next year like $400,000, and then we would hit 7 figures, and then we would hit multiples, and then we would branch off into other instruments and genres, and I would branch off to doing business speaking and speaking from the stage and automation clinic, and that's kind of the start. And here I can turn around 15 years saying I'm still doing that same thing, and many people can't say that.
No, and that's something. I mean, there's a common theme to your story as well. It's just, first of all, it's just hours invested and kind of some pig-headed determination and mentorship. And I mean, you and I, we both signed checks that we can't cash just to get the information we need so we can implement and do what we need to do. And it's not the right decision for everyone, but if it was something that for both of us, I think were turning points. And it definitely doesn't seem easy. I mean, that's a really good logical progression. What were some of the upsets that you had? What were some, like, did you ever have like I don't know, was there any big fears in when you were growing the business? Were there concerns? How did you know what to reinvest your money into, like in the growth? Because I think that's something that a lot of people are thinking right now, and they hear you like reinvesting it, like, okay, well, where do I put it?
Right. Well, for me, I guess I was naive and enough to take one man's course or program, and I think it was like, I don't know, 20 chapters in that. And when he said, do this, I did it. Now, people wouldn't know Corey Rudel back then. Some people maybe listening won't have the benefit of being around that time. So you're talking a guy who's making $7-8 million in 1999, and then his business would go to like $25-50 million at his death, even without him being around, and then it would dissolve because you know how that works when the founder goes. But he was the man. He put it this way. InternetMarketing.com, he owned that domain name. Like, he owned that. That's like owning cars.com. He owned his profession. He owned it. So everything he said, if chapter 3 was start an affiliate program and here's the software you need to go buy, well, what do you think Jermaine did? I had the money. That wasn't the problem now. I had some money to put into it. I bought his Assoc track. I bought what he told me to. And then when he said, go to goto.com and here's how to bid on your words, I bought it. When he said, you need to invest in organics and here's the directories to get on and pay the annual fees, I bought them. So I went down that progress, and then I would find other people to listen to and other consultants. And I wasn't afraid to actually hire out. I remember the first time someone, an SEO company locally, and not all SEO companies are created equal, by the way, but this one, $500 a month, still, having not had money that long, $500 a month was an investment. And, I signed on that dotted line, and I wasn't afraid to put money in places to grow the business. I didn't see it as an expense. Even my accountant, I said, don't call it an expense. And he was like, who do you think you are? I said, it's an investment, I never liked seeing it as an expense. An office chair is an expense. But anything I do for marketing to create more money, that is an investment. And I look at it the same way as a real estate person. See, people, they separate. They think buying real estate and putting a down payment, that stuff is the investment. No. Everything I do in my business, I look at it the same way. And when you compare it that way, there's no other means of creating wealth that can be compared to the ROI of marketing an effective business. And that was one thing Corey told me, and I don't know if it affected my viewpoint, but I asked him, I said, what kind of real estate do you invest in? Because I wanted to know, what else do you do? And he was like, I don't do anything of that, because when I can put $100 in my business and it makes $10,000, tell me what other thing does that.
Yeah.
I put $1 million. Yeah. What's that, Daryl?
I said, where else am I going to get that ROI? So, sorry, but you say where's he going to put $1 million somewhere?
Right. Yeah, well, for him in his language, he puts them in somewhere and it turns into 10, And there's something to be said about long term and appreciation and that stuff. But, he got me thinking in the early time, like, he's like, stock market, these people are making 10% on their money. Jermaine, with what we know, we can make 10,000 times on our money, 10x very easily. That's not hard to do, So that's kind of where I went. Now my challenge is I was always in school. I told people as of 2005 I was a full-time student. So my business was never my 100% full focus. Turning in these papers and staying true to my commitment to my grandma to graduate, college and become a lawyer, because she didn't get this here and play in here. What's this website? Music and play in here and what? Cut and dream? Like, she just, every time she thought because it had an and in it, she had my name right. I was like, Grandma, here and play. And it's always that dreamer having to, convince his family that this is what I'm doing. Laugh at me all you want. This is it.
Right, because they can't see it, right? They don't see it
at
all.
They can't see it.
Yeah.
Right. They can't see it. So I had to hire family. I mean, well, not family. That's what I did. That was a struggle. But I had to hire people. Now, those people, you could synonymously take people and put family because that's what I automatically did. I hired family. So that was my huge struggle. 19 years old, managing my own mom, my sister, my aunt, my friend in college. And so that created a struggle. Now, the marketer becomes the manager, and anybody listening to me that can relate knows that marketer doesn't automatically equate to manager. Entrepreneur doesn't mean C-level, manager or executive. Those things, they aren't the same thing at all. In fact, they're oftentimes two different people, the visionary, and then there's the how guy, or girl. And that was a struggle for me, getting an office and now having like 6, 7 employees and managing and payroll, and those things came in and actually slowed me down. It was like I longed for the day when it was just me, But that everybody hits that, and then you get to this. You get to this, and I remember 2007, I actually cleaned house. I fired everybody except for 2, Yep. And that was a hard day, bringing like all your aunties one by one. It was like I had in my head, I was like, okay, 30 minutes, like 11 o'clock, okay, I got to fire aunt, so-and-so. 11:30, I got to fire, my mom. And then 12, and I know that sounds bad. It sounds bad listening to it. I mean, I still helped her out outside of the business, but I remember that was one of the hardest days of my life. Because it wasn't working. I mean, it was like you clean house and your marketing still works. So why are these people around, just twiddling their thumbs and having office drama? So I learned that at an early age, and I probably would not hire people very, very close to me. And I think there is a fear of outsiders for some entrepreneurs, and I have that fear till this day.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome. And you mentioned a couple of things here that I think, like, where did leverage really step into it? Like, what were some of the key leverage points? Because that was one of the things that I really admired. I mean, first of all, I first saw you were on stage, and that was when you won Marketer of the Year for InfusionSoft. But I remember, first of all, I was like, wow, this guy's actually built what everyone talks about. I can't believe it because I've never seen it. It's been this white elephant unicorn that people talk about, but no one really seems to show. It's like they never tell you what's open the box, but they just keep telling you what's in there. And you were like, here's the box, almost even like you're doing now on this call. But another thing that really, really impressed me was just what you said before about leverage. Do you have any I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have any rules about leveraging that? Because when you do something, anytime you do something in marketing or anytime you create any kind of content, and I had just went through this with a friend who was planning a special promotion, and we had a conversation about what's your goal? How much money do you want to make? And then we reverse engineered what resources they had, and there was no way they could make that in this one-off promotion. And then my suggestion was to not do such a restricted promotion if that was the goal. Instead, do something that they could, right, like something that had a longer lifespan that could, you know what I mean? Like instead of just rushing to get a Valentine's Day promotion in and make $100. If your goal is to make 10,000, then let's build a campaign that will actually make $10,000. And so, but you're so good at that leverage mindset. I mean, for people listening to the call, Jermaine is like the only person I really know that lives a 4-hour work week. Tim Ferriss does not live the 4-hour work week. He wrote the book, but if you know how that book got launched, there was, and this is no, because I mean, by all means, a ton of respect for what he's built, but he didn't build that with 4 hours a week. He was like going to conferences and seeking out bloggers, and like he was like hustling to get that off. And maybe he was making, enough money to kind of, just, and I know guys that do that too. They live in Thailand, they make a couple $1,000s a month, and they're living like kings, but that's not something you can retire on. That's not like a legacy you can build and give to your children. For you, with what you've built, if like heaven forbid, let's knock on wood, if you were to pass away, but your family wouldn't know what to do. They wouldn't know how to shut anything off. Your marketing's running. Like people would, the world wouldn't even know for like a couple of years. And so when you create content, do you have anyways, I'm rambling, but how do you, I don't know, can you share some of your insights around leverage? Because whenever you do something, you like dice, you're like an Indian that will like kill a buffalo and like use everything on it. Like when you create something, you get like 15 uses out of it.
Yes, that's my philosophy, and it goes back to how I came up in this. As a full-time student, never always having to make sure things were efficient. Managing people, having to make sure I had systems and things in place. I would accidentally fall into that stuff. But yeah, these days, like Jim Rohn says, I'd always begin with the end in mind. So if I'm producing content, I'm like, okay, I could write the content. But then I'm already at the kind of, if you look at the chain of how things flow down, written is probably at the bottom because it's hard to produce something from written without doing more work. I can read my written work and turn it into an audio, but I have to read it, right. And I can do a video from my written content, but now I need a teleprompter and I have to do it. Right. But if I start at a video, then as you know, we can extract the audio, and from there we can extract the transcripts. From there, an outsourced writer can turn that into 4 or 5 articles, and we can push that into our follow sequences. So something as simple as that, just the order in which you do things. A video, speaking from energy units out of Jermaine Griggs, it's one video, and then I pass it forward on the chain. Henry Ford gave us the assembly line, but people before that, one guy was having to build the entire car and had to, and that was obviously a slower, less efficient way to do it, and he came along and he introduced the assembly line, which I believe wasn't even new for that time. And that just revolutionized the industry. And I think of myself as oftentimes the beginning of the assembly line, but I need not be at every step if I set things up appropriately. And so that's just the content part. And the great thing about the I call it like the triple threat in content, you got a video, you got an audio, and you got a written format. When you go out and generate leads, right? Off the bat, you've got 3 different things to test, because now you can test modalities. I won't begin to tell you that there are people that don't like video. You think video is the highest perceived value of the 3, but some people like to read it. Some people don't want to sit through a 20-minute video. So now it gives you 3 different things to test, and then when you deliver the whatever it is that they gave you their email for, now it gives you 3 different reasons to follow up. People miss that part, right? We teach follow-up, and we teach, like for example in InfusionSoft, I can say, hey, Daryl hasn't clicked to go get my free report. Let me send him a reminder, right? That's easy to do now with the basic CRM. Even Aweber can do that. These programs are tracking, email clicks, and so I can have like worst case scenario emails that, they'll go out a day later. Hey, Daryl, make sure you go download the report, or I noticed you didn't download the report, and then 2 days later, same thing. Well, those can have a tendency to get a little nagging, like grandma calling you out, saying, be careful when you cross the street. And I'm like, Grandma, I'm 30 years old, but I love you. That's how those emails come across. But when you think with the end in mind, now it's like, hey, Daryl, notice you didn't click on the video. Hey, you're probably the type that enjoys listening to it in the car. Maybe, maybe not, but here's the audio version, and here's how to throw it right on your iPhone, or here's the podcast version of that same video. And then a day later, hey, here's the written version. Maybe you're a reader. Maybe you read on the treadmill or on the bike, the stationary bike. And here's the written version. So that helps. Another thing I do is a lot of people have time-sensitive or launch, what I call assets. And like your buddy, he wants to launch something, or your client, he wants to launch something real quick and get it out and things like that. And oftentimes the mindset is short term, have a launch. And even if the launch is successful, what happens to those assets? They usually go dormant, idle, and, maybe a year later you bring them back, dust them off, change them up, and then launch again or something like that. But me, I'll put that launch in a long-term automated sequence. And obviously this didn't come overnight. That same little boy at 17 evolved into thinking like this. But, I put that's called day 60. In one of my sequences, I'm playing basketball with Chris. Chris, and he's like, "Man, aren't you releasing jazz tomorrow? How are you able to be here at midnight at 24-hour Fitness playing basketball?" I'm like, "Man, I'm not launching anything tomorrow." He said, "No, I got the email. You launching it, man. What are you talking about?" I said, "I'm launching it to you, but it's not costing me anything. We're not up late, putting out fires trying to get this thing out because of this same concept, this same idea." I did launch Jazz, but it was in 2007. Jazz was a great success. All those emails I put out, all the launch content, that's an everlasting, evergreen asset that I can go then put in a sequence for people who take me up on a Jazz lead magnet, and put them through the process, build that rapport, build that relationship, give them content, and bam, that 2007 launch is now 2015 launch for Chris or for Martha. So it's that concept. Look at all your assets. You'd be surprised. You know what I oftentimes will do is, because I've got thousands of broadcasts over the span of 15 years. One shopping cart started me off. InfusionSoft, I've got that. And I'll just go through some of my sent mail. People don't do this. Go through your sent broadcasts, and it will bring to light many assets that you just forgot that you had, reports you created for launches, video content you long forgot about. And those things can be rejuvenated, put into active dynamic sequences to be working for you versus just working a finite, specified period of time.
No, that's that story of Acres of Diamonds, where, the guy, grows up on a farm, and every night he dreams about discovering some diamond mine and becoming rich and famous. And so when his parents pass away and he inherits the farm, he sells it and travels the world in search of finding this diamond mine. And 8 years later, he's back in his hometown. He's broke. He's a little desolate, disgruntled, and he's at this coffee shop or diner that he grew up at, and he's reading the morning paper, eating, and he realized the guy he sold his parents' farm to discovered a diamond mine on the under the soil, and it's that whole Acres of Diamonds. You don't know what you got because you don't look. And so I just love that. And for some of the people, again, because I think this applies to a lot of different businesses, and obviously we're talking a lot about internet marketing stuff, but the internet's just a medium, because I've done I've worked with people who have a small business and they do some sort of half off sale, or I don't know, some sort of sale, some sort of promotion. It works great and they make all this money. They're great. What are we going to do now? And then they want to create something new, and it's like, well, wait, that worked great. Why wouldn't you do it again? And if it's a seasonal thing, then why don't you just do what you did last year this year, and just like you said, those marketing assets that you have. And so just it's just such a powerful thing, again, when you say just being aware of what are your assets and what are your well, just like you said, differentiating the reality between what is really an asset and what is really a liability. I like that because it was so organic and it came out of necessity. It wasn't because an accountant told you what an expense was. It was because you realized how it was affecting your life, and then you categorize it that way, because I think people miscategorize things. Do you have any other habits that have really helped you on your path to success? I mean, because I feel a lot of us, I feel even myself, my own business career, a lot of my challenges in business have often been personal development challenges, where I had to grow to solve that problem. And you mentioned the entrepreneur not being being a manager, C-level CEO or CO or whoever, some sort of executive. Have there been any habits or anything that you found really helped you be successful?
Yeah, when I compare, to other entrepreneurs that I know and just people I've rubbed, shoulders with, I think really investing the time. Like if you come over, most people will notice I own, clearly over 1,000 books. I can't say I've read all of them, but they're on my list, and I've read a good number of them. And by golly, I'd rather have books surrounding me than DVD. So even for nothing but the, osmosis, it's just good. It teaches my kids, too. My kids grow up seeing all these books. So what do you think that they'll have nostalgia over? I remember going to my dad's office and there was thousands of books. Right. They'll probably, see that and be affected and have an urge and desire to read as well. And I think, every answer is in a book. Now, just not any book. Now, I know people that say you should read fiction and things like that, and that's probably something I could do better at. I could probably, be flexible and open to reading non-business books and maybe some fiction and things, but I don't know, I can't get into that as much as I can a hardcore marketing or, psychology book or something like that. But I think that reading marketing and psychology and persuasion just really gave me practical skills to be a natural salesperson. And I use that word. I'm not afraid to use the word salesperson. I remember I called a buddy of mine a salesperson because he was trying to sell me something, and I was like, dude, you're just a salesperson. You're not you're not acting like a friend. And he got mad. I actually didn't because I call myself a salesperson, but I am not a salesperson, but at the end of the day, I don't have a negative connotation to sales. Now, you can throw some synonyms in there and you can rephrase it and recall it and define it, whatever. But at the end of the day, sales, psychology, persuasion, having an affinity towards that and actually liking it, not just seeing it as an ends to a means, but actually seeing it as a way that this is how the brain works. This is how you interact with people. If you're at a restaurant and you want the waitress to do something or the waiter to do something special for you, Cialdini talked about a study, like if you want some extra fudge on your sundae, don't ask for it when you order it. You say, hey, can I have this ice cream sundae right here? That's right here. And then as they turn around and walk away, hey, by the way, can you throw some extra fudge on there for me? And they're likely to say yes there because they've already, taken your first request. There's this commitment and consistency. But if you throw in all your requests in the beginning, they're going to say, ooh, that's going to be extra 50 cents. That's going to be extra $1 for that. Is that all right? And then you're going to say yes. So now you paid the extra $1.50. But just the order in which I find that fascinating. It's not just marketing and sales and headlines. It's life. It's how to get what you want, just in the regular run of the day, because a lot of people are scared of the word no. There are people that are going into an employment interview, taking a college entrance interview or law school interview. These books, help you in just the everyday run of life, and I think that made a big impact. Being a reader and just having a depth of knowledge at something. There's that argument, generalist versus specialist, and we know someone in our Facebook group for my company who he's a self-proclaimed generalist, and there's value in that as well. And generalists, they make great consultants because they know a lot. They know a lot of stuff. But I found it very helpful to be a specialist, and not just a specialist in anything, but a specialist in marketing. So I go really, really deep into marketing and my extensive knowledge of marketing. But to be honest, what that does is it makes me very, very surface level and ignorant in other areas. So ask me what sports teams are playing right now. Ask me who's winning, who's on the way to the Super Bowl. I can't tell you. I can't tell you if the Raiders are good. For all I know, they have a perfect rate. I don't even know what to call them. They have a perfect, but they don't. I just heard that they're they won their first or second game. I wouldn't be able to tell you pop culture stuff because I'm so deep and concentrated and focused in what I do. And I don't know, my perspective, I just never understood why people are so infatuated with Kobe's life and Kobe's three-point percentage and, the Raiders. People have the Raiders tattooed on their back. I just never understood what gives you that allegiance to something that cannot change your life unless you're that receiver catching that pass, and you signed that $1 million bonus. I've always been infatuated with my own story, creating my own story, and creating and improving the lives of my family and those around me and my constituents and my customers. And so that gives me a very narrow focus. And to be honest, it's kind of hard to hold a regular conversation with a regular person because I'm deep in one field, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
No, I agree on you. First of all, Jim Rohn said you can't read the book you don't, what is it? The book you don't own, you can't read, and the book you don't read can't help you. And so I fully believe in that. And that's, and I mean, even if you only read a chapter, at least you got something from that book. And if you don't have it and you're like, there's so many times where I pull off a book on the shelf, zoom through the table of contents, find what I need, and that's it. And that might be the only purpose that book serves me. But for $10, man, that was a great investment. And I know exactly what you mean about osmosis, because there's so many nights where I fall asleep in my bed surrounded by books, and I would feel like it's like sleep learning. It doesn't work, but you just feel that sort of pride. And it's true. I mean, that's in Think and Grow Rich, the 13 principles. One is specialized knowledge, and that's how you're going to get good at something. I mean, Malcolm Gladwell in the book Outliers talked about 10,000 hours, and as scientists have determined that 10,000 hours is what it takes to become world class at anything, at any sport, any profession. That no one's born naturally gifted, and to put 10,000 hours into something, that means you're taking hours away from something else. And I have a personal theory that I don't think that there's anything in the world. I think there's only two states of existence, and that's growth and decay. And if you're not growing, like when you're studying for a test, you're consuming information about it, your knowledge about that is growing. You take the test, you stop studying, you start forgetting things about it, and it's decaying. And I feel that's part of why specialized knowledge is so important, because it helps you push through and make progress in that direction. And so exactly like you said, surrounding yourself with the books, all that stuff, I'm fully wholeheartedly behind you in that. I forget how I was going to bring up that, interject with the growth and decay, but I think that's really important because, when you're saying you don't watch TV and you don't watch sports, when you watch those, the only thing that's growing is that, your knowledge in that. When I watch 30 hours of a TV show, the only thing that's growing is my knowledge about that TV show. And that's it. And if everything we do is energy that's outputting, and then anything you invest that energy in is going to grow. That's the cool thing. Humans are animals. We're also plants. And anything that we focus on grows. Plants just sit there and they wait, and they're subject to their environment. And it's all they wait for is water, sunlight, and nutrients, and then they start to grow. Humans were different, where we can seek those things out, and we can give them to other things. And that's exactly like you say, when you can't hold a conversation with some people, I can't really talk sports with people. I'm good because I've traveled so much. I can kind of make conversation with everyone, but you've got the same kind of strategy. It's what about the leadership? Or what do you think? You're asking those questions, right? But it's just mostly it's getting other people to talk because it's not useful. It's not anything. It's a really, really good lesson. So, Jay, what are some of your big books? What are some of the books that you would recommend to people listening that are all right, I'm listening, I'm fully engaged, I really love what these guys are saying. I'm itching to buy something. What book do I get? I should get Amazon open because I always order them.
Right. I mean, there's a number of books. If someone's really sold on this idea of being a world-class marketer, salesperson, writing compellingly, being able to communicate in ways that make people desire whatever it is, that you want to persuade them in, or you want to show in a great light. It could be politics, it could be selling products, it could be services, it could be convincing people to join your team. Anywhere where persuasion is needed, people like Dan Kennedy, anything that he authors, I love Dan Kennedy. They're in the psychology department. There's a professor, Robert Cialdini. He wrote the book Influence, and his weapons of influence, I believe there's 6 of them. His weapons are I remember when I read that 8 years ago, and it just gave me profound life-changing knowledge about just how things work. And when someone tries to sell me at the mall, I feel like I have the scientific reasons behind why it's working. Even though I'm a salesman, I'm a marketer, I'm why am I being succumbed to this? And I cannot, leave, because, they offered me, some water, they got on my good side, and I feel too nice to say no. Those things, he talks about them. And not only just, puts them out there, but gives you the sociological research and studies and findings behind it. So I thought that book was just fascinating. In the personal development, obviously, obviously Think and Grow Rich and some of the classics, but a modern book by Darren Hardy, Compound Effect. I really enjoyed that book. A modern book that kind of really gives a synopsis of personal development. And have you heard of the magic penny scenario or example, analogy, I should say?
No, I haven't.
Well, like if you go to someone and say,
sorry.
yeah, the one.
Yep.
Yeah, I got that out of that book, and I was like, yeah, just a simple analogy, but like, would you take $3 million now, or would you take a penny that doubles every day for 31 days? And most people probably would take the $3 million, or they don't want to do the math, because that penny, day 2 is only worth 2 pennies, day 3 is 4, and then 8 pennies, it's still like by day 5, it's only 16 cents, and then like day 6, 32 cents. I think like the first week, it's still only like $8 or something like that, or nothing at all. And then, by day like 20, it's like 300,000, and then like by day like 28, it's like $1 million, and then like by 29, it's 2 million, and then by 30, it's like 4 million or something like that, and then by day 31, it's like, it doubles. I think it gets to about 5 million. So don't quote me on the exact day. I'm not a walking database, but the concept is 31 days, that penny turns into like $5 million versus that 3. So you almost get 100% difference by going, compoundedly, if you will.
I think that ties into what we talked about with investing your time, like how you love investing your time in books and diving deep in that. I think that compounds in the same way, that over your life, that's another Jim Rohn quote, where success is just the right habits done every day. Failure is the wrong habits done every day. Because you have that compounding effect, almost like the penny doubling. When you were saying that, I was thinking about all the books that I've read, and I'm like, wow, like every day it's just one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. Next thing you know, you've walked 10,000 steps. And it's the same thing with all the books. So anyways, that was my own epiphany as I was buying Darren's book.
No, absolutely. He gives so many analogies. He's like, even when you talk about just giving that extra inch, like Tiger Woods wins first place, the winnings might be like he might, get $10 million in winnings, but then second place is like only $1 million. Like this, the difference between first and second is so much difference in reward, but when you actually compare Tiger to like the second place, it's only like 1 or 2 strokes that make them different, So it's like that extra stroke, that extra little inch, but then being first, the reward is so much, greater. And then he talks about the trajectory of a plane. If you just like move the nose of a plane like 5%, and you leave from California headed east, you'll end up in Boston or something like that instead of New York, But I just like the way he used real world analogies. So that's like my modern personal development book. And then like in a really like database marketing, if any of that stuff appeals to anyone out there, there's a book by Jim Noble called Drilling Down, and that is like the best. It's an $80 book, but think about it like buying a $2,000 course on a discount, because that's what I really feel about that book. And so those are a couple categories to keep folks busy. But for me, it's usually business, psychology, personal development, and I'm trying to get more into biographies and things like that, because I have a lot of them. But I don't know, I just like the practical stuff up until now, just nuts and bolts.
Yeah, I'm the same way. So now, what's you've given some awesome content, Jay. Thank you so much. What are you doing now? What are you excited about now? What do you have going on? What's happening in your world? What's new, and what are you building and promoting? And
well, funny thing you mentioned, my 4-hour work week. I certainly, like the last at least 3-4 years have been like a mini retirement. And I must say, it probably was on purpose, even though I look back and say, oh, man, I'm too young to be, just working 4 hours a week or whatever. But I remember reading 4-Hour Work Week and being so inspired by that in 2008 when I read it. I remember I was in Las Vegas. We were there for some reason. I was just in the bathtub. I love to read in the bathtub. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this mini retirement thing. And I remember 2010, I closed my office. And I went virtual, and I didn't want to be tied down anywhere. We closed the office for 4 years. We just now brought the office back with a real physical team. I went through that period. I had kids. I already had one daughter, but we had like 2 kids in 1 year. It felt like it was like they're like back-to-back Irish twins. You know, in fact, their birthdays are this month. Like they're the same age this week only. Like they're both 4, and then one turns 5 like on the 15th. So that's crazy. That all happened in this like 4-hour work week. Because if you're not working, you're doing something else. You're playing.
Right.
And so now, where I'm at, you know, I kind of got that out of my system, and it's interesting because Tim Ferriss didn't say you retire forever. He says you take time off. What did I do in that time off? I ran a marathon. I lost 30 pounds. I've doubled my strength. I'm doing CrossFit. So I think I needed, you know, that 4-hour work week. But now I'm back to working a little bit more. It's not 4 hours. I'm calling in from my office here with the live studio, and we're launching what I call Hear and Play U. You can't really say university if you're not, you know, a school or college, but I want to call it Hear and Play U. And what that is going to be is a portal, a mainstream portal. My goal is 1 million members. And that's going to be a mainstream portal similar to how Rosetta Stone would teach language. I want to be that name for teaching music, just playing, not sheet music. You can still go to school for sheet music if you want, but if you just want to play, it doesn't take that long. And I want to have a one-stop shop where you can come, you can choose your instrument, and you can pay a monthly fee for one instrument, or you can pay, you know, the gold fee and just get all the instruments, so all your children can be on it, and adults, and gospel, and jazz, and blues, and all instruments. And it'd be the model where we bring in the teachers, and we do live trainings, and kind of like Creative Live. Someone gave me that idea, yeah, we it's a mixture between live training, archive training, and like a stratified membership. And this is the one that kind of will culminate, because I've done separate training centers. I've done gospel over here in its own island and jazz over here. But this is going to be one that we can do a mass marketing effort to, taking everything I've learned and everything we've been successful at and really just going forward with technology, our Hear and Play. I don't know the name of it yet, but right now in my head it's Hear and Playmate, but some people think that sounds too sexy. You know, but it's a software that will revolutionize musicians in the way that they practice and learn their instruments. So never before you can connect your keyboard to your computer and learn some things about yourself. You know, like how many notes do you hit in a practice session, and how does that compare to other musicians? How many notes do they hit when they practice? Maybe I need to step it up. How many chords do you hit? How many recognized chords? How many new chords do you hit? You know, do you know how to play in this key? How fast do you play on average in your practice session? Like, it'll be like an analytical tool, but it'll be like a social tool. So I'm very excited about that. So, you know, we're trying to move and shake and make some things happen, you know, going into the new year, and I'm very excited about you know, bringing the office back and kind of getting out of my my mini retirement, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an organic thing. Honestly, I think that we all go through phases, just like seasons. And you did, man. You were so. I knew you before, and now like you are so jacked compared to where you were before. That is awesome. So what about Automation Clinic? I know, can we send people, I want to mention that because I know people listening to this, if they're business owners in that, I mean, obviously go to hearandplay.com and just to even witness Jermaine's marketing and just to see it and to learn how to play music. And for music fans, Jermaine's, you know, world renowned for a reason because he's just phenomenally good at what he's done, inch wide, mile deep, as we just talked about. But for other people as well, you definitely would want to check out automationclinic.com just to learn some of the tricks and ninja stuff that he does, because what Jermaine just mentioned, again, I don't even think he really realized it, but he talks about this like software that he's coming out with. He is so good with the tech side of stuff, and he breaks it down so simplistically, and he has a bunch of tools that you can use. I would just strongly encourage you to just check it out. Again, even if only for the free stuff, go to automationclinic.com, hearandplay.com. Yeah, Jay, is there any other way they can get a hold of you, or just those are probably the best ones?
Yeah, those are good. And then if for the business side of things, or if I said something to tickle your ear, you know, as it relates to automation or just, you know, setting up leverageable systems, I do have a free video sequence. There's 4 videos, one after the other, at automationvideos.com. Again, automationvideos.com. and there you can see some things to get you going as it relates to setting up repeatable processes in your business, setting up systematic processes, having things work for you, having emails go out at opportune moments, having expiring offers and one-click upsells, and we got Christmas cards going out. How to just have all this stuff. I call it circular marketing. How to just surround your customers with different multi-channels and modalities, because most people are only using one. They're using email, but there's at least 15 other ways to surround your customers. Just yesterday my cell phone was going off because people are replying to their Monday Music Minute text message. That's a 3-year program of a free text message that goes out every Monday that I set up 5 years ago. But you get on it, you get a text message from me until well into the future, automatically. That's just one of the 15 ways, right? So we're in their purse, we're in their pocket, we're in their email, we're on their phone, we're in their mailbox, we're a part of their birthday, we're on their mantle because of the Christmas card, we're in their coffee because we send gift cards, we're everywhere. We want to be front of mind. We want to be in their conversation that they're having. So automation videos will tell you how to do all that stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Jermaine, thank you so much. I value and appreciate you as a mentor, as a friend, and as just a role model of what's possible when someone really just focuses and dedicates himself to business. You gave some really good lessons here just through your own story and your own example. You're just a phenomenal human being, and just thank you for joining us today.
Hey, the pleasure was mine, Daryl. Thank you, and I hope your audience gets something out of this.
Oh, I'm sure they will. You've reached the end of our interview. Now, first, let me thank you for listening. I appreciate and respect you more than you'll ever know. And now I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. First, what 3 lessons did you just learn? What 3 aha moments just jumped out at you? Second, what can you implement for yourself and your business in the next 24 hours? Third, what can you give to someone else to help you with, or give them to just do it for you? Whatever it is, remember, taking action is the secret sauce to results. Now, if you think this interview would be helpful for a friend, please give them a link to it. It'll help them and it'll help me too. I'd also like to invite you to help me find out more about the challenges you're facing, your dreams, your goals, and how I can help you overcome what's holding you back. We both do better when we know better, and your success is my success. So please reach out and interact. You can visit our website, bestbusinesscoach.ca for Canada or California, where I'm from and where I'm living. You're welcome to also try out one of our paid programs. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and pretty much every other social media channel you can think of. You should also subscribe to the podcast, and if you're enjoying them, please leave us a nice review. It really helps. That's all for now. Once again, thank you. Take care of yourself, and remember, the world needs the best business you can build. And I believe in you.